Welcome, one and all, to the SpareTalk News Network. Your host, Rod Weaver, will be up momentarily as he gets ready for his one-on-one interactive podcast to kick things off. So, sit back and enjoy. And now, on with the show.
Welcome back to Strike Zone Legends, everyone. I'm your host, Rod, and today we're diving deep into the career of a true PBA icon. This is a special one for me because back around 2009, I actually had the chance to meet this legend, David Ozio, at a trade show in York, Pennsylvania. He was just as charismatic in person as I imagined. But to truly understand his incredible journey, especially from the 80s and 90s, I've invited someone who's been following the tour even longer than I have. A real fan from those glory days. Please welcome our guest, Howard.
Thanks for having me, Rod. It's a real pleasure to be here. You know, David Ozio was one of those bowlers who just captured your attention. I started really getting into the Pro Bowlers Tour in the early 80s, and Ozio quickly became one of my absolute favorites. His style, his consistency, and just the way he carried himself on the lanes, he was a standout. He had this quiet confidence that just radiated.
That's exactly what I'm hoping to hear about today, Howard. I've been reading up on him, and some of the stories are just fascinating. For instance, this article I have talks about how he even got started. It says back in 1978, he and some friends were just sitting around a restaurant in Beaumont, Texas, and the idea of joining the tour came up. And Ozio said, "We were just sitting around, shooting the breeze, when the thought of joining the tour was brought up. We were good scratch bowlers and decided to go for it that night. It was just a jump up and do kind of thing. There was no thought put into it. We just did it." I mean, can you imagine that kind of spontaneity leading to a legendary career?
Absolutely wild, isn't it? That's classic Ozio, though. I remember thinking, even back then, that he had this incredible self-belief to just on a whim decide to fill out a PBA membership application and then actually make a career out of it, while his friends didn't. That takes a special kind of talent and determination. It wasn't just raw power. He clearly had a knack for it, even if he didn't fully realize it at the moment. It speaks volumes to his natural ability.
And the article points out that after 3 years of touring part-time, he went full-time for 10 years and was consistently making over $50,000 every year since 1985. That was big money in those days for a bowler, right? It really showed a stable career path in a tough sport.
Oh, absolutely. $50,000 in the mid-'80s was a fantastic living, especially for a professional athlete, in a sport like bowling, which wasn't as heavily televised or mainstream as, say, basketball. It showed he wasn't just a flash in the pan. He was consistently performing at a high level. That sort of sustained success is what really separated the contenders from the one-hit wonders on tour. He truly cemented his place as a force to be reckoned with.
In 1985, that was a breakout year for him. He earned $85,100, which was 11th best on the tour, and he snagged his first 2 PBA titles, one in St. Louis and another in Tucson. Do you remember those wins? They must have felt monumental at the time.
I vividly remember them, especially the first one. When a guy finally breaks through after years of trying, it's a big deal. You could feel the relief and the surge of confidence. To win 2 in 1 year, that's a huge statement. It really put him on the map for a lot of fans, myself included. You started hearing his name mentioned in the same breath as some of the established pros. Everyone was buzzing about the new talent coming up.
So he had a great 1986 too, finishing 11th again and winning in Miami. But then it mentions a bit of a dip in 87 and 88, where his earnings slipped and he didn't win a title in 87. Was that common, or did it feel like a significant setback for him at the time?
It happens to almost every bowler, even the legends. The PBA Tour is incredibly grueling. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You're traveling constantly, playing on different oil patterns every week. A slight change in your release, a minor injury, or just a mental block can send your game sideways for a bit. For Ozio, it definitely felt like a setback after those strong years, but what made him great was his ability to bounce back, which he did in '89. That resilience was a hallmark of his career.
He absolutely did. He rebounded in '89, earned over $77,000, and won his 5th career title in Milwaukee. And then 1990 was his best season, hitting nearly $100,000 and winning the Showboat Doubles with Steve Wunderlich. By the end of '90, he was 32nd on the PBA's all-time money list. That's an impressive climb, showing real longevity and growing skill.
That's when you knew he was truly elite. The '90 season, culminating in that Showboat Doubles win, really showcased his versatility and ability to perform under pressure. And his partnership with Wunderlich was something special to watch. Those doubles events were always exciting, and they brought out the best in both of them. It felt like he was building momentum towards something even bigger, something truly historic.
And bigger is exactly what happened. This article, which I believe is from early 1991, talks about his start to that season. He found his groove early, winning the first 2 events on the winter tour, the AC Delco Classic in Torrance, California, and the Showboat Invitational in Las Vegas. That ran his total to 8 career titles. He became only the 3rd bowler in PBA history to win the first 2 events of the season, joining Dick Weber and Don Johnson. That's legendary company, Howard. A truly exclusive club.
Oh, that was mind-blowing. I remember watching those events. To put him in the company of Dick Weber, who was already a living legend, and Don Johnson, another icon, after just 2 tournaments, that's like almost unheard of. It wasn't just winning, it was how he won, with such authority and consistency. He really fell into a good stroke, as he said. You could tell he was just in that zone where everything clicks. Just absolutely dialed in.
And the article mentions he had earned $70,000 only 2 weeks into the season. It even contrasts that with Weber winning $8,000 for his consecutive victories, and Johnson making $16,000. It really highlights how prize money was growing in the sport, but also Ozio's exceptional performance. The financial stakes were clearly rising.
The money aspect is huge. It shows the evolution of the tour and the increasing stakes. For Ozio to rack up that much so early, it just screamed Player of the Year candidate from the get-go. Everyone was talking about it. You almost felt like he was unbeatable during that stretch. He was just on another level, really dominating the competition.
He certainly was on fire. But then, this story from the Bud Light Classic at Don Carter's All-Star Lanes in Florida is fantastic. He was in 50th place going into the final qualifying round, needing to make the cut to 24 for match play. And his thoughts were drifting to fishing in Key West with Steve Wunderlich, a trip he always took after that stop. That's a unique kind of pressure, isn't it?
That's a classic Ozio anecdote. It really shows his laid-back demeanor, but also that underlying competitive fire. To be on the verge of missing the cut, thinking about vacation, and then to flip that switch and average over 220 in his final block to leap into 20th place, that's clutch. Most guys would be panicking, but he had this incredible ability to focus when it mattered most. Truly remarkable.
And he ended up finishing 10th and winning $3,000. He said, "I was all set to go, but I didn't mind waiting the extra couple days." That's a great example of dedication, even when a well-deserved vacation is calling his name. It shows his priority was the game.
It really is. It's those moments that define a true champion. To delay personal plans for the opportunity to compete and win, even for a relatively smaller prize like $3,000, speaks volumes about his character and commitment to the game. He clearly loved what he did, fishing or no fishing. He was there to compete and win, plain and simple.
So he's battling Pete Weber for the top spot on the money list early that season. But then he mentions cooling off a bit, and a reason for that, he was being forced to stand in front of the ball return on the right lane for 3 straight weeks, which limited his approach steps. He could only take 3 steps on the right lane compared to 5 on the left. That sounds like a huge adjustment for a bowler, a real game changer.
Oh, that's a massive factor, Rod. Imagine being a golfer and having to change your swing based on the tee box you're on, or a tennis player adapting their serve motion based on which side of the court they're playing. Your approach is muscle memory. Forcing a change like that, especially for 3 weeks in a row, would absolutely throw off your timing and consistency. It just goes to show you the subtle but significant challenges these pros face every single week, beyond just hitting the pins.
He said he was kind of perturbed that his hot streak had to be shut down that way, because you don't catch many hot streaks like that in your career. It really emphasizes how frustrating those external conditions can be when you're in the zone.
Yeah, and you can understand his frustration. When you're in that flow, you want to ride it for as long as possible. To have it interrupted by something outside of your direct control, like lane conditions or physical setup, has to be incredibly disheartening. But he still cashed in 2 of those 3 weeks, which again speaks to his resilience and ability to adapt, even if it wasn't ideal. He found a way to make it work, which is truly impressive.
So with all that momentum, his goal at the beginning of '91 was $150,000 in earnings, maybe even $200,000 if he kept winning. And he was eyeing that Player of the Year title, which Amleto Monticelli had won for the past 2 years. He knew it wasn't impossible to reassess his goal. That's the mindset of a true competitor, always pushing for more.
Absolutely. He wasn't just chasing money, he was chasing legacy. Player of the Year is the ultimate individual honor in bowling, and to challenge Monticelli, who was at the top of his game, would have been huge. Ozio understood that it wasn't just about winning a few tournaments, it was about consistent excellence throughout the entire season. That's a high bar he set for himself, and it showed his incredible ambition.
The article even mentions that winning 3 more titles that year would virtually etch his name on the Player of the Year trophy. It references Mike Albee winning 6 titles in '85 and setting a record with over $200,000 in earnings that year. It seems like the benchmark was incredibly high, showing the difficulty of that achievement.
It was, because the talent pool was just getting deeper and deeper. 6 titles in a year is phenomenal, truly a once-in-a-generation type of season. So for Ozio to even be thinking about getting close to that, or winning 3 more for POY consideration, showed his immense confidence and the belief that he was playing at that rarefied level. He had that winner's mentality, no doubt about it. He knew he belonged at the very top.
You know, something else that really stood out was his struggle for his first PBA victory, which took him 5 years. And he mentioned that he realized he needed help, and it wasn't until 1985 that he learned to trade some power for control in his game. He credited PBA Hall of Famer John Jowdy for teaching him to be smoother. That's a vital turning point.
This is a crucial part of his story, Rod. Many bowlers come out with raw talent and power, but the pros know that control and consistency are what win championships. Jowdy was a master technician, a true guru. For Ozio to humble himself, seek that guidance, and then successfully integrate it into his game, that speaks volumes about his dedication to improvement. It's why he lasted so long and achieved so much. He understood the game wasn't just about hitting it hard.
He even said, even now when I get in trouble, it generally is because I have too much muscle in my swing. I start my acceleration too soon, instead of being smooth and free with the shot. I owe a lot to Jowdy because all my hard work would be useless without knowledge and techniques. That's a powerful statement about the importance of coaching and technique, even for a seasoned pro like Ozio.
It really is. It shows that even the best in the world are constantly refining their craft. That self-awareness, to know when you're reverting to old habits, and to have the discipline to correct it, is what makes them champions. Jowdy didn't just teach him a technique, he instilled a philosophy that stuck with Ozio throughout his entire career. It's a lesson for any aspiring athlete.
And even at what seemed like the high point of his career, he believed there was still room to improve. He wanted to get sharper, add versatility, and be a better speed control artist. He hadn't reached his maximum potential. That kind of mindset is just incredible, isn't it? That constant drive for perfection.
Absolutely incredible. That's the hallmark of any truly great athlete. They're never satisfied. No matter how many titles they win, they're always looking for that extra edge, that small refinement. It's what drives them. Ozio wasn't content to rest on his laurels. He wanted to push the boundaries of his own game, always seeking that next level of mastery.
He was also known as a gutter player early in his career, meaning he was most dangerous on the outer part of the lanes. But he worked hard to play every condition well, seeing it as a way to reach the top. That's a real testament to his adaptability and commitment to being a complete bowler.
It really is. Being a gutter player can be an advantage when the conditions suit you, but it can also be a significant limitation if you can't adapt. His willingness to broaden his game, to not be typecast, shows his strategic thinking. He knew that true dominance meant being able to conquer any lane pattern, and he put in the work to make that happen. He wanted to be the best, no matter the challenge.
Beyond the lanes, he also had some great endorsement deals with Dexter Bowling Shoes and 4 Travel Motorhomes, and he was a staff member for Columbia Bowling Equipment. That extra income surely helped support his family, his wife Lisa, and daughters Heather and Holly during those off weeks. It's great to see that side of his life too.
Those endorsements were a big deal, especially as the sport gained more mainstream recognition. It showed his marketability and how well respected he was in the industry. And it's nice to hear about the family aspect too. It reminds you that these athletes aren't just names on a scoreboard. They're real people with lives and families that motivate them. Meeting Lisa at a pro-am, that's a sweet detail, almost like something out of a movie.
It really humanizes him. So Howard, having been a fan since the beginning of his rise, What would you say truly defined David Ozio's impact on the PBA Tour during your time following it closely?
For me, it was his blend of natural talent and relentless dedication. He made it look effortless sometimes, but you knew how much work he put in, especially after hearing about Jowdy's influence. He was a smooth operator, always composed, but with a fierce competitive spirit that would emerge when it mattered most. He wasn't just a winner, he was a consistent force, a true professional who always strove for improvement. And he had that charisma that just drew you in as a fan, making him a true crowd favorite.
That's a fantastic summary, Howard, and it completely aligns with the impression I got meeting him years later. You know, you read an article like this and you get all these facts and figures, but hearing it from someone like you, who lived through those moments as a fan, brings it all to life. It gives so much more context to the man I briefly met at that trade show. He truly was one of the greats, a real icon.
He absolutely was, Rod. And his story, starting with that spontaneous dinner decision, really serves as an inspiration, I think. It shows that sometimes the biggest leaps in life come from those jump-up-and-do-it moments, backed by hard work and a commitment to mastering your craft. He certainly left an indelible mark on the sport and on fans like me.
What an incredible journey for David Ozio, truly a legend of the lanes. Howard, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights and passion for David Ozio's career. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
My pleasure, Rod. Thanks for having me and letting me revisit some fantastic memories of one of my favorite bowlers. Anytime you want to talk PBA history, you know where to find me.
We'll definitely take you up on that, Howard. And to all our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Strike Zone Legends. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the life and career of David Ozio. Keep those pins falling, and we'll catch you next time.
From the year 1977 in the Valley News. Hypnotism gains Robinson victory. Second-seeded Jay Robinson of Van Nuys, who used self-hypnotism prior to the start of the final round, upset top-seeded Mark Roth 238-222 Saturday in the nationally televised championship game of the $100,000 EMF Grand Prix of Bowling. In the women's division, Betty Morris successfully defended her title by beating top-seeded Edie Jo Neal 216-209 in the title game. Robinson's victory, worth $10,000, was his third career Professional Bowlers Association title and first since 1976. The men's three-match championship round began with fourth-seeded Tommy Hudson of Akron, Ohio, defeating third-seeded Pete Couture of Windsor Locks, Connecticut, 269-213. Robinson, who bowled in several Valley area traveling leagues before hitting the tour, then eliminated Hudson with a 268-213 victory as he finished with 8 straight strikes. In the title match, Robinson jumped to a 35-pin lead after 4 frames, then saw Roth narrow the margin to 5 pins after 8 frames. Robinson clinched the title by finishing with 4 strikes in a row. I started using self-hypnotism earlier this year, and it seems to work. Robinson said. About 2 hours before bowling, I put myself in a trance and try to put good thoughts in my mind. It definitely helped me today. I was able to block out everything but my bowling. My concentration has never been better. Without using self-hypnotism, I doubt that I would have won. Roth, of Staten Island, New York, won $7,000 for second to finish the year with earnings of $105,583, the third highest total ever recorded in Professional Bowlers Association history. Third-seeded Morris, who also won $10,000, started the championship round with a 265-225 victory over fourth-seeded Lori Nichols of Palatine, Illinois, and the Stockton resident then defeated second-seeded Virginia Norton of Whittier, 212-209. From the Missoulian in the year 1982. Richards retells Forsyth murder. The repetition of phrases such as, to the best of my recollection, and after 3 years I just don't remember, became a major part of the testimony of Douglas Richards during the 4th day of the Forsyth homicide trial in Polson Friday. Richards is testifying on behalf of the prosecution about his participation in the December 11, 1979, Shooting of Karen Forsyth at the Skyline Bowling Alley in Kalispell. Richards claims that he and Forsyth's husband, Jerry Forsyth, conspired to murder her 3 years ago to the day. Another man accused of involvement in the shooting, former Kalispell police officer Gary Red Elk, was reported missing on bail Friday. Court was adjourned early as attorneys discussed the disappearance. Red Elk is not being sought. Richards, the pin setter and maintenance man at the bowling alley, testified for a third day Friday. Forsyth's attorney, Robert Keller of Kalispell, is trying to discredit the story Richards told prosecutors in return for immunity from prosecution. Richards' story is that he took the cash receipts of the day and hit Jerry Forsyth over the back of the head, after Forsyth shot his wife, to make it appear as if a robbery had happened. Richards, a self-proclaimed alcoholic and marijuana user, was on the witness stand for the third day. Keller was attempting to get Richards to recall specific details about the murder plan and the days which followed. Keller asked Richards about several $10 and $20 bills which were taped to the mirror of the back bar in the lounge, adjacent to the bowling alley. Those bills, part of a football pool, were also missing the night of the shooting. Richards said he had never discussed with Forsyth taking those bills, and offered several suggestions as to who might have taken them, including the investigating officers from the Kalispell Police Department. He also suggested that some bar employee may have taken them, or that Forsyth himself may have taken them as a way to complicate things in the event he should ever go to trial. It would be a very smart move on his part if he did, Richards said. In response to questions about the shooting, Richards said, "I have never seen a person die before. My attention was basically focused on Karen." He said it took from 1 to 3 minutes for her hands to stop twitching. After that, Richards said, Forsyth put a gun kept at the Howling Alley into his wife's hands, to make it appear as if she had reached for it during the robbery attempt. Richards said he couldn't remember if Forsyth wiped off the gun. At one point, Keller assumed the position on the floor that Richards testified he saw Karen Forsyth in as she died. Keller asked Richards to place the gun in his hands as he had seen Forsyth do it that night. According to Richards, Forsyth stuck a pencil in the barrel of the gun, and then placed it into her hands. Richards also demonstrated to the jury how he had stashed the gun and the money into a locker in the basement of the bowling alley. The bowling bag that Richards said was used, and a locker from the bowling alley were provided as prop. Richards testified that the presence of that evidence in the locker worried him, because he and Forsyth had not planned a precise way to get rid of it. Worry about the gun, which Richards said he believed was provided by Red Elk, prompted him to make his first direct contact with Red Elk at the Kalispell police station. Richards said he called Red Elk only to ask that Forsyth, who had not returned to work at the bowling alley since the murder, contact him soon. Richards said he never would have contacted Red Elk if Forsyth hadn't already implied that he had somehow assisted in getting the murder weapon. After that conversation, Richards said he asked Red Elk, "Do you think somebody may be listening in?" Richards said Red Elk indicated that may be a possibility. Red Elk was a witness in Forsyth's original trial, which was overturned because of a technicality. Flathead County Attorney Ted Limpus said that Red Elk would be called to testify at this trial, but that he could not be found. Later Friday, Limpus said he won't worry about Red Elk's disappearance until next week, when he wants him to testify. Red Elk was arrested on November 24th of this year and charged with accountability in the Forsyth case. He was released on property bond last Tuesday and told not to leave the state. Limpus said Red Elk disappeared before he could be served with a subpoena. Testimony is set to resume Monday at 9:30 a.m. From the year 2006, in the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Driscoll Nabs, Virginia Tour duckpin title. David Driscoll of Virginia Beach defeated top-seeded Tiger Baker of Norfolk 153-146 in the championship match of the Southern Virginia Men's Tour Stop Saturday at Plaza Bowl. Plaza's Bob Gusty won the first two matches of the stepladder finals. beating Jimmy Coyner of Chesapeake 124-120 and Alan Angevin of Norfolk 119-105, before losing 149-129 to Driscoll, who earned $350. Angevin led the six-game qualifying with an 849 block. From the year 1994 in the Baltimore Sun. Second win worth the wait. 71-year-old claims duckpin event. 71-year-old Moose Quattrochi of Essex has been throwing a duckpin ball for 59 years, and last month he won his second duckpin bowlers tour event at Fairlanes, Joppa. There's still a little life in the old man, Quattrochi laughed. Winning never gets old. Top-seeded, with 89 pins over average for the stepladder finals, he said that it was great that he could sit down and wait for the first three games to be played. That last game, the qualifying game for the finals, I was a little tired, he said. Carl Coppage defeated three opponents in the stepladder finals to meet Quattrochi for the championship. Quattrochi squeezed by Coppage, 112-98. He started his career on the duckpin lanes as a 12-year-old setting pins at the Patterson lanes. One of the Manhattan balls he uses is almost that old. I was 16 when I bought a pair of bowling balls from Bill Brosey, a Hall of Fame duckpin bowler, and over the years one of them strayed, he said. But that old ball is still one of the three that I carry. It still gets the job done. From the Sarasota Herald-Tribune in the year 1989. Abood wins PBA tourney. Rich Abood won his first Professional Bowlers Association tournament, beating Robert Lawrence 245-206 Sunday in the Fairlanes National Resident Pro Championship in Orlando. Bowling in only his second title match, the second-seeded Abood struck on 5 of his first 6 shots, giving him a 40-pin lead halfway through the title game. Lawrence struck in the 6th and 7th frames, but could get no closer than 30 the rest of the way. Lawrence, top-seeded going into the stepladder finals, earned $3,500 for second. Abood earned the $6,000 winner's share and a berth in the 1990 Firestone Tournament of Champions. From the Press and Sun Bulletin in the year 1976. Shap vetoes tax bill, wraps break for bowling alleys. Governor Milton J. Shap yesterday vetoed a bill that would have given a local tax break to senior citizens, housewives, and students because it also gave a tax break to bowling alleys. The bill started out in the legislature as a measure to exempt bowling alleys from local amusement taxes. The other tax break provisions were added later on. Shap said that if the bowling alley amusement tax were eliminated, municipalities might have to raise taxes in some other area to make up for it. It should be pointed out that under present law, local governments which impose the amusement tax can, if they desire, exempt bowling alleys from paying the tax, Shap said. The decision whether or not to exempt the bowling alleys is best left to local discretion. Shap said it was regrettable that he had to veto the other 2 tax reform provisions because of the bowling alley exemption. One of these would have prohibited municipalities from levying occupation and occupational privilege taxes on housewives, students, and others who are not employed or have no income from occupations. The other would have excluded Social Security income and retirement benefits from local income taxes. From the St. Cloud Times in the year 1965. Bowling tip: the 5-step approach. Marion Ladewig's bowling column focuses this week on the popular 5-step approach. A 5-step approach is used by many good bowlers. Switching from 4 to 5 steps is one way of increasing speed. The left foot becomes the starter in a 5-step approach, of course, for right-handers. The first step should be small and the push away should begin immediately, or there will be no advantage to the change. From the St. Louis Post-Dispatch in the year 2002. Wienermobile veteran switches lanes in quest for a good story. By Bill McClellan. The first time I met Mike Walsh, he told me he relished his job. That was in 1997, and he was driving the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile. What did his parents think when their son graduated from college and signed on as a Wienermobile driver? They knew I could cut the mustard, he said. Yes, he was quick on his feet, but that wasn't surprising. Those Wienermobile jobs were, and probably still are, considered hot. To drive around the country for a year in a Wienermobile, with strangers waving and honking, well, who wouldn't want that? But a year is all you get. You're replaced before your enthusiasm can wane. And what does somebody do after the Wienermobile? Walsh went into marketing. That seemed to make sense. After all, duty on a Wienermobile is all about marketing. You drive into town and you try to promote Oscar Mayer. Maybe get on television. Maybe get interviewed by a local newspaper columnist. So marketing seemed like the ticket, and Walsh got a job in Chicago. But it was a job sitting at a desk. He did that for a couple of years. He quit in September. He is now traveling around the country. His goal is to visit a bowling alley in every state. Actually, his goal is to write a book about his bowling alley road trip. He faces a couple of hurdles. He does not yet have a publisher, and he is not much of a writer. Maybe I shouldn't have quit my job, he told me. We had our conversation Tuesday morning at the Tropicana Lanes bowling alley on Clayton Road. He was about to drive, a nondescript Honda is his vehicle these days, to Jefferson, Iowa, where he remembers a nice bowling alley from his Wienermobile days. Iowa, by the way, will be state number 20. The journey started in Walsh's home state of Ohio. Walsh explained that his father, who died 2 years ago, had once talked of playing handball in all 50 states. That dream was never realized, but it served as the inspiration for the bowling alley idea. The book idea itself has evolved, Walsh told me. At first, he figured it would be about a 27-year-old former Wienermobiler off on a strange journey, and maybe there would be some serious parts about his father. But as Walsh started visiting bowling alleys, he realized that he was not as interesting as some of the people he was meeting. There were stories in these bowling alleys, by gosh, and a fellow ought to be able to string these stories out into a book. Had he found any stories at Tropicana? Actually, no. He had been to Tropicana 2 nights earlier, but strictly for pleasure. His sister lives in St. Louis, and Walsh took her and her kids bowling. The kids' names, by the way, are Katie and Ben Conzen. They are 9 and 5. If St. Louis makes it into the book, we'll be reading either about the Bowling Hall of Fame or the Saratoga Lanes in Maplewood, an 8-lane alley on the second floor of a building at 2725 Sutton Boulevard. Walsh interviewed the owner, Jim Barton. Maybe the strangest bowling alley Walsh has visited is the Bowlmore in Manhattan. It's actually a nightclub, and most of the people are there to socialize. The bowling serves as a backdrop. While in New York, Walsh was on the Caroline Rhea show, and a bowler from Tennessee saw the show and offered Walsh a place to stay in Tennessee. That sort of thing has happened a lot. If he's not staying with a friend from his Wienermobile days, he's being put up by strangers. Some have followed his journey on his website, bowlingroadtrip.com, and these kindnesses have kept his costs down. Of course, he finds himself buying beers for people at bowling alleys. You can spend a lot of money in 5 or 6 hours at a bowling alley, he said. Not just on beer, either. There's bowling as well. Walsh has a 130 average. From the year 1962, in the Ledger Star. A real fish strike. This is a fish story right down a bowler's alley. James Parker of Norfolk County dropped a fishing line in Hodges Creek yesterday, the same as he's been doing for some time. Only he never had quite a catch like the one he pulled out of the waters off Southern Branch Road. In went line and hook, and out came a bowling ball. I couldn't figure what it was I hooked. I kept on pulling and tugging at the line, thinking I landed some kind of a whale or somethin' in that old creek. But when I pulled the catch in, it was a big old bowling ball. Parker, who has been fishing for years, says he has had moderate success catching items out of the fish family. Mostly old cans and stuff. Once even a boot. But a bowling ball? It's a real event for me, snapped the 27-year-old chemical worker for Goen Chemical Corporation in South Norfolk. Parker hooked the ball, a black one in the thumbhole. He used a rod and reel. The ball has a name. It's got the word Bill on it, and if the owner wants it back, I'll be glad to give it to him. Tell the man to give me a call at work. The number is KI51422. How did the ball find its way into Hodges Creek? Parker knows of a car running off South Branch Road, not so very long ago, and figures the bowling ball must have been in it and fell out when the auto was pulled out of the water. If you're looking for a Christmas gift for the man who has everything, how about a soggy black bowling ball with Bill written on it?
Well, I think we'll wrap it up for today. Thanks again for stopping by and tuning in to our revised format of the This Day in Bowling History podcast. As usual, if you'd like to be notified of future videos when they become available and are published, feel free to hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of the videos or the YouTube screen. Have a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to seeing you on the upcoming Monday, and hopefully we'll have a few more enhancements to the podcast. So take care.